So Skeleton Crew, yeah, real bad ratings. In fact, they are currently the worst ratings out of any Star Wars show on Disney Plus, because they have not appeared on the ratings chart at all, which indicates we know how low they are as a minimum. Well, we know how low they are as a maximum, sorry, because we know what the minimum is for the ratings chart. And it's real bad. Now, I'm going to say this. I actually predict them going on there, because I actually think that the it's a grower. I think the word of mouth is what will save this show. Because look, I've not watched it. It's not. This isn't. I couldn't be bothered. It's not for me. This is, to me, very firmly a children's show. It's different when it's like The Acolyte. Like The Acolyte, you watch that and you go, yeah, like it's clearly intended for a bit of adults here and there as well. So I'm going to watch that, and it's entertaining and it's garbage. It's entertaining because it's garbage. Just to clarify. But this is very clearly for kids. I'm not going to waste my time on it. But basically, it's just not appeared at all. So the Nielsen's ratings for the first 2 episodes of Skeleton Crew are in. They're not in, is the point, basically. They're not in at all. They're worse than The Acolyte. They're worse than Andor. And effectively, they are the worst for any Star Wars show at all. Now, interestingly, and I didn't know this, Samba TV has refused to publish numbers. So that's fascinating, because Samba TV has basically stopped publishing numbers for Star Wars or Marvel shows, which is, yeah, I mean, that's interesting. That's interesting. It's telling more than anything. But basically, Skeleton Crew did not appear. It didn't make the Nielsen ratings. So as you can see here, it's not there at all. And you can see what did make it as the number 10. So we know what the maximum view count that the Skeleton Crew could have had to just miss out on the ratings chart, right? That's what we can extrapolate from this. And yeah, it's not good. So we'll just scroll through this. So The Acolyte. So as it says here, since Skeleton Crew didn't make the list, its total viewership was below 382 million minutes, meaning the average per episode was under 191 million minutes, which is terrible. The Acolyte also premiered its first 2 episodes in one night. That did 488 million minutes, which was an average of 244 million minutes per episode. And then Andor, 624 million minutes. That had 3 episodes, though, so an average of 208 million per episode. So you can see just how bad that is. 191 is... And that's the maximum. It could have been even worse than that. Now, you've got to remember, Samba TV is not showing anything. So, yeah, 191... That is the worst out of every single Star Wars show. It's the worst ratings. It's not to say that, again, it's not to say it's bad, because I've heard nothing but good things about it, generally speaking, from people. And generally speaking, people seem to love it. People think it's actually quite decent. But this is what happens when you destroy a brand. This is what happens when we've had years and years and years of Disney Star Wars, and people have just gone, nah, sod this now, I'm done. So that's it. That's the story. It's just indicative of Disney destroying their Star Wars brand. And I like to say it, because I think it's true, is that people no longer give them the benefit of the doubt. And I think that's why no one watched those first 2 episodes. And people did, don't get me wrong. But the broader populace didn't. And so those people are waiting for, more people to talk about it. But I do think, because people have talked about it, and people think, generally speaking, that this is quite good, I actually think that this will appear on the streaming charts eventually. And I think that the ratings will pick up. But that's still a really bad sign. And the take home from this is that, yeah, Kathleen Kennedy's just destroyed this brand. So that's it. I don't have anything else to say. That's it. That's the story.
Yeah. The opposite of love is not hate, as many people like to believe. The opposite of love is apathy. If you hate something, you still care about it. And people hated The Acolyte. They did. The Acolyte caused rage, and rained money down upon the heads of content creators worldwide. But now the problem that we're seeing now is the Acolyte was what I predicted it was going to be. The Acolyte was the death blow. Star Wars is a dead brand. There is a Star Wars show out right now that lost to the Great British Bake Off. And you know what? I've watched every episode of Skeleton Crew because I've been reviewing it with the gang over on the Pro Channel. And I would rather watch a granny make a baked Alaska than watch anything to do with modern Star Wars anymore. It is just completely dead. People don't even want to engage in conversations about how bad it is anymore because they're just checked out. Hasbro, the company that owns the Star Wars toy license, is basically going broke because no one cares about Star Wars anymore. And you want to make and Hasbro not being able to sell toys, you want to talk about why a kid doesn't work for Star Wars right now like this, because no kids like Star Wars anymore, which is wild for me to say, because when I was a kid, every kid loved every boy loved Star Wars. But it is just a complete non-entity. She has taken the most evergreen franchise that the world of cinema has ever known and dropped the ball on it in a horrific way. Star Wars is dead brand. Culturally,
I agree. Yeah. I can't disagree with it, to be fair.
Yeah, no. Look, okay. So this show is not the inedible tripe that was The Acolyte. It is relatively inoffensive. It is well serving its target audience, which is younger people. It is not for me. I can tell you that right now. After watching one of the episodes early on, I knew that this was not aimed at an adult person with a brain. At least not the entire show. There are elements of it that are smart. They seem to remember that Star Wars was a 4-quadrant product way back when, so it does have elements that appeal to each demographic, but at the same time it suffers from the same problem that all the Lucasfilm projects have recently, which is continuity problems, logistical, internal logic problems, and things like that. Setting that all aside, it's miles better than anything else that they've made recently. And as you said, and Marvin, I agree with you, the most evergreen property in the history of cinema and now television, unfortunately, they managed to make completely irrelevant. And I think you're right about the apathy. I think that exists. And I think it's why there is no audience for this. And as Nate said, maybe this is a slow burn. Maybe this gets another season. Maybe we do see that. I don't see how. I mean, the metrics for return on investment for Disney Plus are non-existent across the board. Nothing that they make makes any money because there's nothing to be had at the end of that rainbow. It's not driving commercial traffic. It's just driving subscriber traffic. And with you looking at the audience as who's watching this, it's not enough people. It's not enough people to even make an assumption that it drives subscriptions, because it doesn't. And Disney has one of the highest churn numbers in the streaming game that there is right now, over 5% per month. So they have to drive 5% of what their customer base is to just keep up every single month. Every 30 days, they have to maintain that number. And what have they resorted to lately? Massive discounts across the board for multiple months so they can just keep level. And if you're over 2%, that's kind of about where you need to be on a subscriber service, whatever it happens to be, but most especially in the streaming business, and you're having to overcome 5+, there's a problem. And that number is only going to go up.
This is not getting a second season, not with numbers less than the Acolyte.
And I don't think it's going to drive. And raise your hand if you think it's going to drive subscriptions. Are people going to show up for this show?
No. So it costs a lot. It costs about $100 million reportedly less than the Acolyte. Now, I push back on everybody that's like, oh, this show's good, this show's great. This show has got the rot in it. It's just a little bit better buried. I mean, we've got, the one girl's got the two moms. The girl on the right in the picture here, she is a baby insufferable girl boss whose only problem is that she can't handle the fact that people are not as perfect and as awesome as she is. The adult white male in the cast ends up, surprise being horrible and being the bad guy. Like it is the show has all of the rot in it, and people for some reason just aren't seeing it. And I think it's because it's not as in your face as the accolade. If somebody serves you a turd and then the next day they just serve you a really, really poorly made hamburger, that hamburger is going to taste amazing to you, I think. And I think that's what's happening to the few people that are actually watching this.
Yeah, I mean, I've not watched it, so I genuinely can't comment.
Well, nuanced messaging aside, which is, I think, what you just said, it's not Star Wars. Though I've likened it to sci-fi, generic sci-fi show on the Sci-Fi Network about Goonies. I think that's what this is. But regardless, and again, there are a lot of people, including people in our audience right now, probably have enjoyed the show, and that's fine. These are our opinions, but I'm just going to say it this way. This is not a show driving traffic, and the only reason to create anything for a streaming system is to drive traffic. You've got to drive subscriptions or commercial revenue. This is doing neither.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Some people in the chat, well, one person in the chat, sorry, said, I can't find it now either. Said, how long have you guys been saying that Star Wars is dead, authoritatively? Look, I agree, right? We have been saying Star Wars is dead for a while. I agree with that, right? But we're not speaking literally from the perspective of, oh, it's dead, no one's ever going to watch it ever again. Like, obviously that's never going to happen. But to go from what it was to what it is now, that's what we mean, like dead metaphorically, right? Like, it's on life support. It's a dead brand in that sense. It's difficult to deny just how steep a decline the brand has taken. But that's what we're talking about. We're not saying it's literally never going to, get views ever again, and it's dead in that sense. No, it'll always get views. Like, of course it will. Like, of course it will, absolutely. But is it getting, is it getting, I don't know, huge profit? Is it profitable? No, like, it's not profitable at this point in time. So we're just talking about that. But anyway, we'll move on from this now.